How's it going, YouTube? It's Matthew here, and today I was gonna do a little bit different type of video. I'm actually out here in my sunroom today, which I like to call the treehouse. Kind of a gloomy day here in Atlanta, and so thought it'd be kind of a good day to come out and just bring a few instruments and see what kind of music I could create. But I kind of wanted to take a break from that and just like pause and talk about something that's kind of been on my mind recently. And that is things that I wish I knew before I started making music. So for those of you who don't know me, I've been making music and playing, music for the better portion of my life. I grew up playing the piano, kind of learned through the classical methodology, so to speak. Took piano lessons, did piano guild for all of my pianists out there, who know what that is. And kind of like got burnt out from music, to be honest, and took a break, then kind of returning to it back in 2020, and where I really kind of started diving into making my own music and kind of learning music production and synthesizers and guitar and everything else. So that's kind of like my history with music. And I feel like that kind of gives me a unique perspective because I have learned music through, the more traditional means, the more classical version of education. And I've learned a lot of music through YouTube and through the power of the internet. Pretty much a long way of saying I have had a long journey with music and have learned to play music through different ways. If I had to start learning how to make music from scratch again today, these are 6 things that I wish I knew. The first is practice what actually interests you. And I know that might sound kind of crazy and obvious, but hear me out and what I mean by this. When you're kind of learning the piano, you're kind of, I feel like, at least for me, it always felt like you had to play certain songs before you could cut to the next song, or, you need to learn how to play the acoustic guitar before you play the electric guitar, or, it's like learning music is just this like series of ladders of like things you have to do before you can do the thing that you actually want to do. And honestly, I don't know if I really agree with that. I think the best way to practice and the ways that I've kind of found to make the most progress with my music is when I'm actually like practicing what I'm interested in and like learning to make the styles of music that I'm interested in. So, if you want to play rock and roll, don't get an acoustic guitar, just get an electric. It's okay to learn on an electric. Like sure, there are some merits to learning the proper way, but I think the more important thing is to find something that's going to make you want to practice. And so that's why I think it's very important to practice something that's interesting to you and not necessarily what everybody says is like the best way to go about that. The second thing I wish I knew is that music theory is honestly not as big of a deal as you think it is. And I know I can hear the keyboard warriors in the comments already trying to debate me on this one. But what I see a lot among along some of my musician friends, and what I kind of struggled with when I was trying to kind of find my voice with music, is that it's like there's this misconception that like music theory is going to tell you the right way to like write a song, or like I feel like a lot of musicians feel like they can't develop their voice or until they have a complete understanding of music theory. And I think that's completely wrong. The way I like to think about music theory is that it's something that's descriptive and not prescriptive. And what that means is like music theory is great to use when you're trying to describe your music to other musicians. But it's not prescriptive in the way that, it's going to tell you what to do or how to write a song or really inform, your decisions when making music. So that's the second thing that I wish I kind of figured out earlier. The third thing that I wish I knew before I started making music is that to leave room for creativity. And what I mean by that is I feel like a lot of times when you're learning music, you're so focused on reproducing someone else's work, whether it's, trying to master a piece on the piano or, do a perfect kind of cover or like learn a solo on the guitar. There's a lot of focus on, perfect repetition and like precise repetition. And I think that's definitely good to I'm definitely don't think that's a bad thing to practice, but I think it's also important that you leave space to be creative. And what I kind of mean by that is like, like if you're learning a song and you like it, like figure out why. Try and like take things that you like about pieces that you're learning and apply them to your own style. I think it's really easy to get caught up in the mastery trap of, music is like perfecting sheet music and music is like perfecting pieces and perfecting other bands' work, when really music is about creative expression. And I think, most of the fun of music does not come from perfect repetition of other people's works, but comes from the creativity of it. And that's something that I did not really learn until later. And honestly, it even though I had like a good musical background, learning how to be creative was kind of like was weirdly like a struggle for me. Like if you put a piece of sheet music in front of me, I could play it for you. But if you asked me to kind of come up with something on my own, I would freeze. And so that's why I think it's important while you're learning, like learn how you can express your voice on the instrument. Learn how you like to make music, and not just recite somebody else's work. Which leads me into the fourth point is that songs are the best way to learn music, hands down. And there's two reasons for that. One kind of goes back to my first point, is that if you're learning music through songs that you like, it's going to be a more enjoyable and more rewarding experience. When you're finally able to play a song that you love, like that's just a really incredibly like rewarding feeling that I don't know where you can kind of get anywhere else. And then the second point is, I think songs are like the best way to kind of add to your own personal vocabulary. And that's really kind of, as you start to develop that repertoire of kind of like licks and, motifs that you like, that's when I think you really start discovering your own voice. You really do take bits and pieces from artists that you like and songs that you like, and that is what ultimately becomes your voice. The fifth thing I wish I learned earlier when making music is to learn how to record yourself. There's really no better way to kind of measure your progress as a musician than to record yourself. It's so funny. I have some like old recordings of when I was first learning guitar, and like whenever I'm having a bad day, I go back and look at those videos, because it's like, I thought I was so good playing the guitar, but like looking at it now, it's like, nah. So that's, I think that's why it's important to record yourself, whether that's just a simple video on your phone, a voice memo. There's literally so many options. Just hit record and capture yourself playing music. It's really just the best way to measure your progress. Finally, the sixth thing that I wish I knew, and honestly, this is still something that I'm learning how to do today, is to share your work. I think it's very easy to get caught up in this trap of a musician as like your music has to be, different and perfect, and it has to meet these certain requirements before you're able to share it. And I feel like this is something I still am like struggling with, is like, music doesn't have to be perfect, and in fact, like, it's almost better if it's not, because it's more relatable, it's more accessible. And I think, sharing your music helps it helps connect you with others. It helps, you never know who's going to see your music, or who's going to like see something that you've done or shared with the world and be inspired by it. I think one of the coolest things for me when I started kind of sharing posts, whether it be on TikTok or YouTube Shorts, is, I was just trying to create little like silly beats and just have fun recording myself. But I would get all these messages from people saying that they felt so inspired, and that is honestly one of the best feelings in the world. And that's not something you can get unless you share your work. So help help me help you, and in turn also help me. And share your work with the world, because you never know who it's going to impact and what could come of it, and you literally have nothing to lose. So anyways, that's it for today. Those are just kind of 6 things I wanted to share with y'all. I hope that was helpful to someone. Let me know what things you think would have been helpful to know before you started learning music. If you like my music, if you like this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, keep making music.